Does one learn more from books or from podcasts?
Any day books, man. Any day. I'm looking forward to giving a TED talk just on reading. So you can imagine the amount of benefits I see from reading books. So books have a phenomenal wealth of wisdom lying to be tapped. Podcasts are curated, opinionated, time bound. All those problems don't lie with books, right?
वेलकम गोवेंचर के सीजन 2 पे आई एम प्रीतेश कुमार आपका होस्ट एंड co-founder of फंक्शन I've run multiple companies, raised and burnt capital, and have shut startups down too. फेल हुआ, लर्न किया, एंड सक्सीड भी किया, एट ऑलमोस्ट एवरीथिंग दैट द स्टार्टअप एंड बिजनेस वर्ल्ड कैन ऑफर. Hence, GoVenture podcast एक फ्रेंडली रिमाइंडर है उन सभी हैक्स एंड स्ट्रेटजीज के लिए जो जरूरी हैं ग्रो करने के लिए एंड टू अचीव योर ड्रीम्स. Lastly, join our group in the description to share stuff and startup networking के लिए with like-minded folks. So today we are talking to Hetal Sonpal, a corporate guy who turned into an active angel investor, and also Hetal fitness freak है and इन्होंने Ironman triathlon complete किया था last year. But जहां तक startups and investing की बात आती है ना, I think startups have burned a lot of money in the last few years, promising growth, something or the other, right? And a lot of highly promising startups have collapsed lately, be it Byju's or Go Mechanic. तो इन्वेस्टर्स इन्वेस्ट ही क्यों करते हैं ऐसी कंपनीज में? कितना आसान है या कितना डिफिकल्ट है टू रेज कैपिटल फ्रॉम इन्वेस्टर्स? आओ एक्सप्लोर करते हैं all of this with Hetal Sonpal. And yes, before we begin, I want to thank all of our listeners for all the love, messages, and the comments on the podcast and Instagram. So let's go. Hey Hetal, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you very much, Pritesh. Pleasure being here and look forward to some exciting conversations.
So Hetal, मैंने ना एक set of rapid fire question prepare किए that we'll start with.
Sure.
Quick one to line answers. A lot of questions will probably we would want to choose. We would want you to choose among two maybe equally good options, right? Let's start.
Okay. Yeah, on
Okay.
ready.
So first question, why do you think startups lose crores of money building a company?
I think the whole concept of startup losing crores of money is wrong. The idea of creating a startup is to create value, not to lose value. I think they lose money because investors give them a lot of money, right? So I think the fault lies with investors rather than the startups.
Got it. What should one choose? What would give more return on effort and money?
What?
Basically, better ROI, right? What would give better ROI? Whether one should choose angel investing in startups versus, say, investing in share market or real estate.
That's a tricky question. I think 5 years back it was the former, but today I think it's the latter. Very unfortunate, but that's true. The returns in public market today are far better than what you would get in startups right now. And of course, it doesn't help matters that the startup is going through a funding winter, so it's difficult to get funding, and things are looking tough for startups at this point of time.
And what do you think in the long run?
I think in the long run, it has to be a balance, right? I don't think it should be either or. I think startups provide their own benefit as far as an investing option is concerned. So do public market equity, and depends on what stage in your life you are, what's your risk capability, and according to that, you probably want to do a balance and not just do an either or.
Got it.
Nobody should invest all their money in the angel investment. Similarly, nobody should invest all their money in public equity.
Got it. And who do you think early stage founders should be looking to raise from a VC or an angel investor?
Early stage, of course, it's always angels to start with. From a hierarchy perspective, you start with your own money, then you go to a friends and family round, then come in angels, and finally come the institutional investors. I think jumping to trying to get an institutional investor too early is not a good thing, both for the startup as well as for the VC.
Got it. Got it. And gym versus running.
Uh,
Since you are a
Running
Ironman
any day.
triathlon, why do you think so,
No,
Hetal?
running any day. Gym has its limitations. But yeah, I mean, people will always debate about the benefits of gym. But yeah, running is more close to me than gym.
Got it, got it. And Hital, since you're an avid reader and you've also written books, does one learn more from books or from podcasts?
Any day books, man. Any day. Hats off. I'm looking forward to giving a TED talk just on reading. So you can imagine the amount of benefits I see from reading books.
What can you go deeper into it, maybe?
So books have phenomenal wealth of wisdom lying to be tapped. Podcasts are curated, opinionated, doctored, time bound. All those problems don't lie with books, right? I mean, books are wisdom available in naked form. You can read as you please. Podcasts can, change your tempo of your mind and get you opinionated towards a particular topic in a very rapid, short period of time. Whereas if you want to build an opinion on a particular topic, reading books will take significantly longer time. You will be able to evolve your own understanding on the topic rather than going with a curated view. I think that's the long and short answer there.
Cool, cool. I think Hital will move to the broader discussion that we had planned, and thank you for that
Yeah,
those rapid answers. And first, I want to
yeah.
start with Hital is that you have 2 decades of experience in tech industry, and then you transitioned into the world of startups as an investor and also a mentor. What inspired you?
I think the speed and agility of startups and founders is something which is still missing in most of the large corporates. Number one. Second is from my own personal perspective, I had accumulated a lot of experience working in large companies. Which have established systems and processes, which of course is missing in startups. So I felt there's a lot of give and take involved, where I can learn from working with young entrepreneurs and learning from their agility and their thought process. There's something I can give back to them, which is the maturity and experience of having worked for large companies. So I thought that was a ideal decision to make, where I can contribute more and I can learn more by engaging with startups versus working in large organizations.
Got it. And coming to your angel investment journey, Hital, how do angel investors make money? Matlab, how do they get returns? No, how do angel investors make returns in general on startups?
Angel investors make money the hard way. They come in early. It's called a risky asset class. The fact that it takes time for them to get returns. It's not an easy, quick fix entry. So it requires a thorough understanding of the startup and the entrepreneur. It's important to understand the kind of business that you're getting into, have a flair of the ecosystem in which the startup operates, and the vagaries or the limitation of the ecosystem can uh, mess up the future for the startup. Even if the founder is doing really hard work, even if the company is doing really good job, if the markets are not responding, they can't do anything about it, right? So I think angel investors need to realize that there's risk involved. They need to be involved as an investor. They need to dig for information. All information will not come to them in form of a balance sheet or in terms of quarterly results. They would need to really ask for finer details. A lot of mentorship is involved by default. Invariably, the startup founders are younger in age. They might need more guidance. They might not be intuitive to everything as well. So, take everything with a handful of salt, I would say, not with a pinch of salt.
I think I want to. I think we've discussed this question एक बार पहले भी थोड़ा Hital, but I want to dig deeper again, and I want to understand कि uh,
Sure.
say again, startups tend to lose a lot of money, right? Building, obviously building something. But why would investors, and how did this get started also maybe? Why would investors invest in something that is planning to lose money? How did this whole concept come into picture?
So I think the element of spending a lot of money is more apparent and more obvious in B2C startups than in B2B. The
Hmm.
reason being, when it comes to B2C, grabbing eyeballs, grabbing attention, getting lots of downloads for your apps, making your brand present in minds and hearts of a lot of people for a sustained amount of long time requires money, requires marketing dollars, requires you to spend a lot. And I think the nature of the consumer, at least the Indian consumer, I can say for sure, they are ruthless. They are merciless when it comes to brand alignment. They don't want to align with a brand very fast. And even if they've aligned with a brand for a sustained amount of time, if a new player comes in and offers something at a half the cost or a significant discount to what the initial product was offering, there is a chance that the consumer might switch preferences, right? So it makes it very difficult for the founder to be able to understand the DNA of the consumer in a short period of time. And that's why there is a sustained need for funding. There is a sustained need for marketing, which obviously requires a lot of constant funding, right? So that's the whole idea. The reason investors still invest in these startups, despite knowing the fact that their money can actually go down, because at the speed at which they are spending money, they're not earning at that same speed, is assuming that you have a hockey stick curve. At some point of time, the losses would stop and the profits would rise. And when the profits would rise, or when the sales goes on an uptake in a significant speed, they are assuming that they would make multiple returns from their investment. So that's the core idea, that you would have a long period where they're spending, and suddenly it shoots up, right? Suddenly the sales start picking up, and then once it picks up, they are able to leapfrog ahead of the competition, and they are able to garner a significant large market share, and their month on month growth and year on year growth is in multiples, not just in percentage terms, and ensure that they get that dominance in that space, which allows them to dominate for a significant long period of time. So that's the idea. There are very few startups which actually are great candidates for such kind of spend, but unfortunately, maybe it's the immaturity of the investor ecosystem, that far many more startups gain such funding, and far many more investors get lured into making investments. And I think that's where the problem lies. I don't
In
know
fact,
if I
of late,
answered your question, but I've
yeah,
shared.
yeah. I think of late, what has happened is a lot of, and why we are discussing this question also because a lot of startups that had raised a lot of capital to be able to burn that capital have been losing capital. Yeah, and have been rapidly losing
Yeah.
market share as well. Once they stopped spending, right? Which probably circles back to the point that you mentioned, which is that Indian consumers are ruthless, right? Loyalties switch as soon as there's a better player or there's a slightly more discount somewhere else, right? Uh, yeah, I think, but I want to come back to angel investing a bit, and I want to understand from a startup point of view, right? How easy or difficult do you think it is for startups to raise capital from investors, or let's say, let's focus on angel investors, let's say.
Um, so it's seasonal, right? At some point of time, it was far more easier, but as we speak today, right now, the funding winter, which started earlier this year, has been going on for a while now, right? So it's far more difficult today to raise funds from angel investors than it was maybe 2 years back. But at the same time, the number of angel investors has expanded rapidly. There are many more now angel groups, which are angel networks, which are existing and prevalent in the country. And the more groups you have, the more networks you have, invariably the number of angel investors does go up, right? So while angels have started to hold on to their money, reduce the amount of checks they are writing, at the same time, the number of angel investors has gone up as well. While it might be investors who might not have that much amount of experience, but they might still have deep pockets, right? Um, so I think it while it's difficult, it's not impossible. That's how I would say, as far as the opportunity for startups to raise angel investment as of today is concerned.
Hmm. And I think the first time that I was raising funds, the first time I was building a company, I was awestruck by probably the uh, probably how to find angel investors in general, right? After a certain point of time, after you have you're more experienced in the startup ecosystem, you tend to know a lot of people, you tend to have a lot of references, right? But someone who's starting up for the first time, how do you think, what do you think are the avenues for them to be able to find an angel investor?
That's a good question, and I think to try and find angel investors, if you're new in the ecosystem, you're probably better off trying to approach angel groups rather than angels, right?
Hmm.
Because angel groups or angel networks like Mumbai Angels, Indian Angel Network, Venture Catalyst, Let's Venture, they already have a large congregation of angel investors as part of their membership. So rather than trying to find five different angels, if you just find one angel group and convince them that you're actually investable, you're investment worthy, they can open the doors for you to be able to pitch 200, 150, 200 odd investors at one shot, which is significantly less amount of effort and energy being spent at your end, and you can move much faster as well. It's not just about reduce effort, right? So my recommendation is two things. One is, of course, you can go out with super angels, right? Super angels like Siddhartha Ahluwalia or Apurva Chamaria. Uh, they have they have it or they have invested in hundreds of startups. Kunal Shah, for that matter, they've invested in hundreds of startups. They have built a pretty rapid portfolio of startups under them. Maybe if you make a random cold call message to them on LinkedIn, they might probably respond back to your request and be willing to hear you out. That's option one, which is a relatively more difficult option. But to reaching out to angel networks or angel groups, I think is a much better and a much more saner option to go for. And I think I would recommend that approach for young entrepreneurs who don't have a network. Get themselves familiar with these networks, and if you get one or two networks, you get to know the angel investors in that network personally as well. It's not that just you would
Hmm.
continue to interact with the network alone. You can have one-on-ones with some of the members as well, and that will help you to expand your network as well.
And what angel groups are you part of, Hetal?
So I started my angel investment journey with Mumbai Angels. This was, I think, 2014, 2015. I was a member for 3 years. I discontinued my membership, but I'm still in touch with most of my fellow angel investors from Mumbai Angels at that point of time, and we built some great friends out there as well. I am also actively engaged with Let's Venture and Venture Catalyst. These are again fairly large angel groups, and I kind of have a more of a offline membership wherein I'm not like actively investing, but if I come across some good startups which are posted on their platform, I might consider from time to time. Yeah, so those are the ones which I've actively discussed with.
Got it. And I remember reading this somewhere that Mumbai Angels recently got acquired by 361. What does that kind of an acquisition mean? What does acquiring an angel group mean actually?
It's a very interesting and a very one-off case. Angel groups typically are not a suitable acquisition candidate for any company. IFL Wealth, which is the company which is acquired, has got interested in was got inter- got interested in Mumbai Angels probably because of the large network of angels they have, and they could be HNIs. A lot of them would be HNIs who could be sold other IFL products. So that's the idea of cross leveraging. While they might acquire the angel group because of the pedigree they've created as far as angel investment as a segment is concerned, but the same investors might be interested in mutual funds, in AIFs, in stocks, and so on and so forth. Right. So that's the idea of such an acquisition. But yeah, such acquisitions are fairly rare because people believe that you would not want to acquire a company just because of the people asset they have, right? They would look for an IP, which an angel group typically would not have an IP, resident IP for that matter. Yeah, so I think it's just a one-off case. Yeah.
Hmm. And let's talk a little bit more about your angel investment journey and what is the and typical question that probably we get asked a lot is that what is the highest return that you have gotten on an angel investment?
Highest returns still wait to be seen because they're all on the paper. But yeah, there are a few companies, Leverage EDU, Impact Guru, who I'm still an investor and they're doing fairly well, and I hope to get a good return, I would say. But more than the return in financial terms, what I have benefited the most from my angel investment journey is learning from my entrepreneurs, learning from these startups, the kind of business models they have got into, the kind of ecosystem they have got into. And of course, these founders are absolutely awesome guys, right? People like Akshay from Leverage EDU or Piyush from the Impact Guru or Saurabh from Advantage Club. I've learned a lot seeing them in action. They are more willing to take risk. They're willing to play more aggressive bets in the market. They are very much faster in making hires and expanding their business, changing or pivoting the business model when it comes to that. So there's a lot of learning, right? So intellectual benefit which I've gained from angel investment far exceeds the financial benefit in that sense. Yeah.
And Hetal, so I believe that you have been investing for a pretty long time, and you have not just been investing, but you have also been invested in those startups personally, also, right? A lot many times as mentor
Yeah.
as well. So what would you say is your process of finding the best startups to invest in as an angel?
So I have a simple 4 point checklist which I apply whenever a founder is pitching to me. First one is the founder's profile, right? I mean, what's the background? What's his alma mater like? Where he has worked before? Has he been an entrepreneur before this? There are some certain traits which I look for in the founder's profile, which gives me the confidence that the founder will be able to weather the tough times, right? If you've got a great idea and the market is responding, bulk of the founders will be able to succeed in such situations. Whether the founder will be able to succeed when things are not going correct, when there's a downturn in the market, is the founder someone who would chicken out? Is the founder who would be even more aggressive when the markets are tough? That kind of personality traits is what I look for as far as the founder profile is concerned. The second one is the uniqueness of the business idea. I typically prefer something which is different in nature. I try and shy away from cut copy paste models which can easily get replicated by someone else. Um, it makes me think, it makes me feel that, yeah, I never thought of this, so this might really have an opportunity. The third one is scope for monetization, right? You asked earlier in the podcast about founders burning money and spending a lot of money. uh, I would probably want to see the monetization journey fairly clearly before I actually invest. It's very important to understand how and when they are actually going to get returns to start off to pay up for their expenses and later to make profits, right? So, profitability, as you know, is a very important buzzword which has come late into the startup ecosystem. But now that it has, I think everyone is prioritizing profitability over growth, right? It's more important to be clear how you will make a profitable business rather than growing yourself into a unicorn, right? No point in being a unicorn if you've got crores of rupees in losses month on month, right? You'd be better off having a small base, a small valuation, and yet you're profitable and independent, right? Profitability also leads to achieving break even. And once you achieve break even, that urge or need to run after funds every 6 months or every 12 months reduces drastically, and that gives you confidence to be able to think from a calm, clear mind and say what I want to do. I will only do what I want to do. I don't need to be at the mercy or uh, at the threat of an investor. Do this, do that. I can run an independent shop even if I've taken investor money. So that's a goal which founders should orient themselves towards. The last one is scope for exit, right? We as investors are investing with certain obvious expectations on financial return, and we would only get financial returns if someone gives us an exit, right? Someone buys the stock back from me. So it's very important for the founder to be able to lay out that clear path. What's the potential exit for an investor in this investment? How long will I need to stay invested? What is the stage at which they will decide to encourage secondary shares to be sold? That is, shares which we bought from the company to be bought by the new investor, rather than he investing in primary shares, will allow him fresh equity. Yeah.
Got it. So the four key factors that probably you look for would go somewhere around, would revolve around finding the right founders, finding a good USP, finding profitability or a road to profitability, and the fourth would be finding a good exit
Yeah.
options, right?
Yeah.
I think a checklist, I think a fair checklist, especially in 2023, I believe, given the fact that everybody had been running over the last 5, 10 years, everybody had been running to startups that would say that we would go to we would go to India to or Bharat and we'll build a large base and we don't know where we'll make money from, all of that, right? And everybody was running
Yeah.
towards India too. That has changed drastically of late. But I want to come back to angel investing, Hetal, and I want to understand, like, let's say, what are the criterias for being an angel investor? I believe SEBI does put up some, कुछ SEBI कुछ बोलता है इस पे, right? SEBI does put up some criterias that, okay, only these people are eligible for angel investing.
So I think the criteria applied by government has been more of a recent change. Back then in 2014, 2015, when I started investment, the government intrusion or government getting involved in understanding who are these angel investors was not so stringent. The norms still are in a state of flux, but I believe there is a certain amount of net worth which you need to show. You may or may not require a CS certificate to show what's your quantum of net worth which you have. And the second one is a promise to invest 25 lakh in that particular fund over a period of 5 years, right? So the entity with which you are cutting the check, if there's a middle entity involved, then there would be a vetting period, which action which the entity would involve, and they say, we are making an informal promise that you would invest 25 lakh over a period of next 5 years, which for a regular angel investor, it's not such a big amount, especially considering the fact that there's a 5 year window during which the investment needs to be made. Other than these two, and of course, you need to be a citizen of India mostly. If you're a NRI, if you're not a citizen of India, the criteria would vary, which I'm not very sure about. But yeah, if you're a resident, a certain amount of net worth and certain amount of minimum investment to be made in the period of 5 years are the two major criteria which you need to abide by if you want to be an angel investor.
And I think fair enough. I think earlier we discussed that discussed the choice between angel investing in startups versus investing in, let's say, stock markets or real estate, right? Stock markets where probably a lot of retail investors, if you see over the last 3, 4 years, a lot of retail investors have jumped into stock markets now. I think the number of accounts has, I think, gone 4 times in a period of 2 years itself, right? Number of demat accounts. Let's say a retail investor wants to invest in startups today. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, actually, it's an interesting question you asked because a few months back I've come across this platform called Grip Invest, which is typically doing this, right? It's
Mhm.
retailing the angel investment journey, where they're saying that we will, collectively, have uh, generate funds from a bunch of angel investors, and then we make a large check investment into a particular startup. So, Taiki and some other platforms have existed for a while now, where the crowdsourcing of angel investment has happened. So, yes, there are different mechanisms and different engines through which retail investors can also invest. But I would request the investors to exercise caution before jumping in. uh, Investing in startup is not just the same, no way the same as it's in public equity. Liquidity is a huge issue. Getting any returns is never guaranteed. We typically tell people, it's a risky asset class where you should be willing to forget all the money that you invested in a startup. It might never come back to you, all of it, right? And that's like a huge statement of risk, right? So it's very important for the investors to be aware about this, the modalities of how you invest, getting the process right, getting the terms right, blah blah and all. We'll sooner or later you'll sort it out. But you can never ignore the fact that it's a risky asset class and all your money can get wiped out overnight and you can't do anything about it. The moment you have cut the check, the money has got deposited in the startup's account, there is no rule which prevents the founder not from even picking up your call from the next day. Forget about giving you a return. He might just block you as well for all practical purposes. Yes, you lose. Yeah, yes, he will lose faith and trust of you, but that doesn't ensure you get your money back, right? From a financial transaction perspective, your money is gone. You can forget that, right? We are fortunate that founders don't do that. Founders are not interested in cheating you, but please understand that it's possible, right? So I think that's a big caution I would say. While there are options for retail investors to invest in startups, I would strongly recommend not doing it till you're abundantly clear what you're getting.
I think if you were to summarize most of what we discussed around angel investment, I think definitely angel investment is a highly risky investment. I think we have seen a lot of tons and tons of startups that were too big to fail, maybe they have failed over the last 6 8 months, be it Go Mechanic or be it a lot of startups that were crumbling with the rise of TikTok and all of those things, right? I think you mentioned a good checklist of for angel investing. That would go a long way probably in helping someone who's looking to invest or to start up in general, right? It's become good wisdom today to seek profitability, to seek USP, and to be able to see a clear exit as well.